Hereditary is brought to you by Crummyzomes. Have you ever been suspicious about one of the lieutenants of hell being a distant relation? Maybe you would like to know if you are prone to cancer, heart disease, or cult-like rituals. Now, we can let you know for sure with Crummyzomes, the genome auditing service that allows us to find out more about your dark lineage. One small mouth swab today may mean avoiding losing your head in the future. Visit crummyzomes.com today and be on your way to a brighter tomorrow. Hello and welcome to Horror Movie Talk, the horror movie podcast where two schlubby guys talk about spoopy movies with your hosts Bryce Hanson, the cool collected nihilist, and David Day, an angry man who is always right. This podcast is for lovers of horror movies, old and new, that want to hear about what's in theaters, what's streaming, and fresh takes on old classics, and terrible horror movies that are bad enough to be good. I'm David Day.
And I'm Bryce Hanson.
And today we are reviewing Hereditary, which I am so excited to be doing. But first, a few plugs for us. Check us out at our website, horrormovietalk.com. Check us out on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We post every other Wednesday. We're now moving to, or I should say we've moved to a weekly format. Expect us on Wednesday. And subscribe and leave a review of the podcast on iTunes. And, let us know what you think about the podcast. Today, we will be talking about Hereditary. I'm so excited. I don't know if I said that before. I should say, before I get too far into this, if you haven't seen Hereditary, pause the episode and watch Hereditary.
Absolutely.
Don't learn any more. Go.
Yeah. And actually, I would say don't watch the trailer, but I don't think the trailer helps you understand what kind of movie this is at all. Don't
learn anything. Avoid everything except for the movie itself.
Yeah.
Because, man, what a ride. So we'll start out today by giving an overview of our review and our score for the movie. We score on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being horrible, 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 very bad, not worth your time at all. Don't see a 1.
Not even enjoyable to make fun of.
Right. Just bad. Just straight bad. 5 being average. Straight up average. Nothing terrible or spectacular about it. A recent 5 for us was The Meg. Or pretty close to a 5 was The Meg. And a 10 being a spectacular pinnacle achievement movie that transcends the horror movie genre and is probably going to be up for some awards or at least talked about because it's just a spectacular movie. So that's how examples of that. One example of that would be Hereditary, a 10, a true hard 10. The Witch is another recent one. Things like The Exorcist, horror movie staples, Psycho, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Later we will be touching on after we give some spoilers. We'll be doing a spoiler section where we go over the whole movie, give our review of the movie, and after that we'll be doing some bits, taglines. I don't think we have Bryce called it for this episode. Instead, we have a bit where we watched the movie with Bryce's wife, who is averse to horror movies in the extreme. Somehow, we managed to talk her into watching the best and worst horror movie for someone who does not like horror movies at all. We got her to watch it with us, and so I sat down with her and talked.
It's a one-on-one interview with my wife because we only have 2 microphones and we recorded it already.
But you're sitting in the background making little quips and crap. So
she wasn't having to watch the kids, so we had to get what we could at the time.
Yeah, but so you get to experience what it's like for someone. I find it very interesting that people's reaction, people who don't like horror movies are adamant about not liking horror movies.
Right.
It is a polarizing issue for them. Anyway, I find that very interesting. I like getting to watch it with her because it kind of helped me see it through new eyes.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all the segments that we're going to be doing this show. So thanks again for listening, and let's get into the show. So we went and saw Hereditary in movie theaters, and it blew us away. In fact, it was part of the inspiration that kind of got us off our asses and got us moving on this podcast, I'd say.
Yeah, I think we saw it. I dragged David and my friend Kevin to Hereditary. They didn't know anything about the movie. I just saw a review of it from Red Letter Media, and I really trust their opinion. And so I was like, okay, this is going to be a good movie. I'll drag David and Kevin to it. And then after the movie, we spent like 2 hours or something like that just talking about it.
Yeah, and this was the late showing. We went to like the 9:30 showing or something like that, and we sat through, a 2-hour long movie, and then we talked about it for 2 hours after that. And I had never, by the way, I had never met Kevin before. This was the first time we had met, and we were both so swept away by this movie that, it was a great way to get to know somebody.
Right.
I'll say that.
Yeah. So yeah, when I was trying to come up with ideas for a podcast, I thought like, well, dang, we talked a lot of just about Hereditary.
Yeah.
We could do a podcast about horror movies.
Yeah. Yeah. It gave me so much energy because after watching Hereditary, I was just constantly this niggling feeling like this. It just kept coming back up in my mind. Like, what an experience that was.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's what you go to movies for.
Yes. This is the rare occurrence. I mean, it happened with A Quiet Place for me, but not for the same reason, not because the movie was just out and out spectacular. Don't get me wrong. Quiet Place is a fine movie. It's good. But the experience of watching it with a room full of silent people was eerie. It was so quiet. And Hereditary was even more incredible to watch. It was just
right.
Yeah.
All right, well, here's the trailer.
Yeah.
Come on, Peter. Let's just do it.
It's heartening to see so many strange new faces here today. I know my mom would be very touched and probably a little suspicious. My mother was a very secretive and private woman. It's Grandma. You know you were her favorite, right? Even when you were a little baby, she wouldn't let me feed you because she needed to feed you. She was a very difficult woman, which maybe explains me.
I recognize you from your mother.
What?
Sometimes I swear I can feel them in the room.
Oh my God! What's that?
I like it. I'm so glad that I didn't see the trailer for this before I saw the movie. Let me bring the audience up to speed on what I thought about this movie. Like before going into it, I had heard the title, like I had heard that it was extremely polarizing for audiences, and there was a scene within the movie that was so upsetting that people walked out in the half-hour mark or so, and to me that's a red flag on a movie. I don't want to see something that will stick with me in a bad way, just because gore porn style. Like, it's not my deal. I don't want to see extremely upsetting things, but man, am I glad I did. So I thought this was like a drama that had an unfortunate incident within it, and that's not entirely wrong. It is. This movie is primarily a drama, which is what makes it so effective at being a great horror movie. So I went into this very, very virgin.
Right.
And
it's one of those movies that, I mean, like I said, I think you could see the trailer and it's not going to be a problem. I think it doesn't give away anything at all about what the actual experience of the movie is.
Yeah.
And they're watching the movie and then watching the trailer after. I'm like, oh yeah, wow, I did not remember any of that stuff in the trailer or expecting any of that to happen. It was still shocking when certain things happen towards the end of the movie. So Hereditary can be found streaming on most streaming platforms or on Blu-ray or DVD now.
It's crazy how fast they come out with movies now. Like, yeah. I was thinking about this. Like, you remember when we were kids, you'd have to wait 9 months, a year before a movie would come to video, and it was agonizing. And now it's like,
yeah, even blockbusters.
Yeah,
it used to be,
and it made sense because they had to build build stock, right? They had to produce a physical copy over and over again of the movie.
Right. The other thing I think is when they released it internationally, they did it over time. They would release it in the U.S. and see, okay, it's doing pretty good in the U.S. What other markets would this work in?
Yeah.
And then they start releasing it there and like, okay, so people like this, and then they'll release it somewhere else. Now it's like, we need domestic box office and China box office right now.
Yeah.
Because we need to look great in the press so we can get more investors for the next one or something. I don't know. I mean, it just seems like all the international stuff happens immediately. And so the theater run happens. It's short because I don't think a lot of people go to the theater anymore. And if they do, it's within the first week or two. And so shorter runs, and then they release it easily through streaming.
Yeah.
And it's all digital.
Yeah. And as we record this, it is very early September, I should say, September. And I think we saw this in theaters probably the end of June.
Yeah.
Maybe early July. And it came out streaming, I want to say, last week. So between...
No, it must have been before June, because I think I still had a job.
No, I don't think you did.
Didn't I? All right, it's been so long.
It might have been. I can't really recall. The news had been broken that you were losing your job for sure.
Right.
It was in June. Anyway, looking at maybe a month or so max that people didn't get to watch this in theaters or on streaming, that this was gone from the earth for people's viewing pleasure.
Yeah.
And in any event, Hereditary, this story is centered around Annie, who's played by Toni Collette, her husband Steve, who's played by Gabriel Byrne, their son Peter, who is played by Alex Wolff, and their daughter Charlie, who's played by Millie Shapiro. It starts out following the death of Annie's mother, who, as it turns out, was an awful person and was very controlling of her family, and just a memory that they were all very happy to or relieved to move on from once she had died. In this movie, Toni Collette this is her tour de force role. She does so well in this movie. It's what everybody says walking away from this movie, because it's true. I mean, can you think of anything that... I mean, she's a great actress. Yeah,
she's fantastic in almost anything that I see her in.
But it was so visceral. It really allowed... the role was so suited to a life, like a perfect role.
Yeah, it's one of those... There are moments on the screen where she is so raw in her performance that it feels...
real.
It feels real, and it feels voyeuristic to even watch it.
Yeah, you sit there and you laugh nervously, not because it's funny, but because it's like you're doing something naughty. Like, you shouldn't be here experiencing this person's profound sorrow.
Right. Like, I can't imagine the place that she went to give that performance.
Yeah, Heath Ledger in The Joker, he'll always be remembered for that because it was so dark and he went to such a weird place for it. This is the same kind of thing. In my mind, she will just be remembered for this. And I mean, it's great. She does a really good job, and her acting is so impressive, and her emotions are so raw that you really just can't help but empathize with her, even when she's like clearly circling the drain of sanity. Like even when she is obviously going insane, and rightfully so, you're like, I get it. Yeah. I'm right there with you, lady.
And she's not even the most likable character.
Oh no.
I mean, there's definitely stuff where they're just glossing over, like, can we stop and talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
Because the characters, like, anyways, we'll get into that into the spoilers.
Let's get into spoilers now. We're going to play our spoilers thing so that if you want to watch this movie, watch it before you listen to these spoilers, because it's a great movie.
Right. And I think we've covered that this is a 10 out of 10 for us.
Yeah, for sure. This is a 10.
Spoilers. Yay.
So, Toni Collette killed it.
Yeah.
Gabriel Byrne killed it. Alex Wolff, Millie Shapiro, all four of the main characters in this movie did amazing jobs.
Right. The only thing I can find fault with is I think Gabriel Byrne tries to do an American accent, and just he's so Irish that he can't help it bleeding through sometimes.
I never notice that stuff. People notice that, and I never have a problem understanding people speaking.
It's not like a problem understanding.
No, it's not a problem understanding. I'm just giving you a where I come from. Like when people say, "Oh, I couldn't understand that guy's Scottish accent," I can't relate to it. I don't know what you're talking about. I understood him perfectly.
Right. Yeah, I think I agree. Every single person cast in this movie was perfectly cast.
Yeah.
I don't think there could be anyone better. Everyone did a great job. Even, Millie Shapiro, the daughter, her performance is integral to the success of this movie, and it was
flawless.
Yeah. It was great, to the point of you're just wondering, did they just find an actress that there's just something kind of wrong with?
Yeah, if she feels she's so the character of.
You think I'm retarded?
No. So Millie's character is Charlie. Mm-hmm. At least, I mean, definitely what you would say on the spectrum, right? I mean, there's something obviously not right.
Right.
With
or just an extreme amount of social anxiety and social awkwardness.
No. And I'm going to argue with you on this point, and I've thought about it because I brought this up to you and Erin. Mm-hmm. And you guys gave me the weirdest look for being like, there's something wrong with her. And you're both like, well, I mean, maybe she's got some social anxiety or something like that, but there's nothing wrong with her. No. I'm going to say no because... And the proof of it is her lying in bed talking to Toni Collette, and Toni Collette's like, "What's the matter, sweetie? Are you okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm just worried about, like what's going to happen to me? Like who's going to take care of me? Because her grandmother had just died."
Right.
And Toni Collette's like, "What are you talking about? I'm going to take care of you." And she's like, "No, who's going to take care of me when you die?" And that is a strong implication right there of she's dependent on she knows she's going to be dependent on her mother well into her adulthood, and that is a problem for her. She's not having that.
No, I disagree. I don't think the character as they wrote it is supposed to be mentally retarded. I think she was expressing just concern about. I mean, it's creepy in the moment because that's not a normal thing for a kid to worry about.
Nothing about what this girl does is normal in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
And to suggest that she's a normal girl is just absolutely incorrect. She's cutting the heads off of pigeons and making dolls out of them, and like watching. It's just everything she does is off.
No, I mean there's kids that are really strange and awkward that don't necessarily turn into serial killers, but are in their own little world, in their own imagination, and are completely awkward socially. I mean, I can see in reality someone like this girl.
I guess I don't know what we're arguing about exactly, because you just got done describing someone who is very off. And that's what I'm saying. This girl is off.
Oh, well, yeah, she's definitely off.
I don't know what exactly, but she's not. That boy ain't right kind of thing, you know?
But she's also like a young girl. I mean, there's lots of weird stuff that happens when you're young, before you have any responsibilities and before you actually have to enter into the world. I mean, I can think of people that make just weird drawings and act super weird in high school and that now are, I mean, they have jobs. They got to act normal enough not to creep every single person they meet out.
I got to try pretty hard not to. So maybe you got a point. I don't know. I still feel pretty strongly about. I'd be interested to hear what everyone else thinks about it. I know this is a touchy subject, but I mean, within the confines of this movie, I think it's very interesting. No matter how you slice it, this girl is doing weird shit. Yeah. She is clearly not behaving normally.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's part of the story. I mean, that's the thing, is that you're wondering, all right, is this girl just off because she's got some problems, and then it's kind of explained, oh no, it's because, you know, they're grooming her to be the vessel of a demon.
Right.
Like, okay, well that explains it.
And she's made to look off, even like in the makeup department. She's given these big bags under her eyes. You know, she's just frazzled all the time. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of kids in early high school that fit that description, but you know, she's definitely, you get a feel there. So she's fabulous. The brother is fabulous. The dad is fabulous. Toni Collette is fabulous. And it's
everything is great about this movie.
Yeah.
The writing,
you don't even realize it.
The directing, the visuals, the theme,
the storytelling.
Yeah,
it's all
the dread.
Oh man,
I mean,
just exquisite in the way they ramp up the dread.
Yeah. So why don't we give like a quick overview of the plot? So it starts out with the grandmother dying, and
they're at a funeral.
Perfect. And like in the trailer, Toni Collette's like, I'm surprised so many people are here. She seemed really private, and she'd probably be kind of paranoid about people being here.
Yeah.
And she's hard to understand, and so it's kind of set up to where this grandma has secrets, and something's probably going on. And then they set up the daughter is weird. It's all get out. She's like drawing creepy pictures,
and she has
of everyone.
She has a food allergy to nuts.
Yeah, she has a food allergy to nuts,
which is executed so well in this movie because you don't even think about it. Yeah. Like normally these kind of things that are like, this is a plot point for later in the movie. She's allergic. Note.
Right.
And normally they stand out, but I didn't even barely notice it. It was just a funny thing that happened during the funeral.
No, it was are there
nuts in that? Like,
it was also it was, I mean, to me it was okay, I got to remember that, but it was done well.
Yeah.
It was just something that would normally happen.
Yeah, it felt like a throwaway line to me.
Yeah. Are there nuts in that? And when she's eating a cookie or something. And as opposed to, you know, being at dinner or something.
Being a critical...
Hey, did you remember to leave out the nuts from this dish because our daughter is allergic to nuts? Did you remember that?
Those sharks have no fins. If you're familiar with the Meg.
He's already been proven himself aggressive towards boats.
What a ridiculous line.
Yeah. So they set up the girl's weird, normal household. She's dealing with grief. Toni Collette's character is an artist that builds miniatures, and she's getting ready for a show. And then...
we don't know what the father does, but he is a very, like, Leave It to Beaver dad.
Yeah.
You know, who is, like, who will sit down with a snifter of scotch or whatever and read a book with a pipe.
Right. And there's even early on, there's indication that stuff is not comfortable or right around this family, and you're kind of wondering whether it's because of the grandma. Did she bring in a weird energy into the life, or is there other stuff going on? Is there other
which is all
drama?
Which is all very odd, because it's all outward appearances. This is a normal family. Two kids, two parents that are stable. They're not having marital issues, and they have a nice house in either Colorado or Utah, as far as I can tell.
Yeah. There's Utah plates on
Utah. That's right. We determined it was Utah, but just a normal family looking, but with an undercurrent of.
I mean, it was Hollywood, Utah, because if it was real Utah, they'd be Mormon.
That's awfully presumptuous. Only people who live in Utah are Mormon.
Only most of them.
Well, you would know.
I would know. So then what happens? Tragedy strikes. Brother goes to a school party and is forced to bring his sister along. And
not a school party, a banger. A house party.
Yeah, a house party. Shocker, she eats some nuts.
Toni Collette makes him take her to the party because she wants her to experience normal fun time.
Yeah. So she eats nuts, and emergency, her throat's shutting up from
the nuts,
allergic reaction.
Anaphylactic shock.
And brother rushes her towards the hospital.
He's high from being at the party and smoking with the girl that he liked.
Right. And then you describe what happens, David.
So he's driving her to the hospital. This scene is incredibly tense, and it's the scene that is the polarized the movie. I think it happens early in the movie. They're in the car. He's driving down basically a deserted road at night, and she's gasping for air, choking. She can't. It's very obvious that she is having difficulty breathing at all. Like it's getting. You're in your seat. You got your hands on both. You're getting.
She is suffocating.
You're watching a person suffocate. She's got her head out the window
to get more
air, and he's going 80 miles an hour down this freeway, and a telephone. A possum is dead on the road or something like that, or walking down the road.
Yeah,
and he swerves to miss it, and he swerves to the side of the road that they're closest to, and her head pops off when they hit it. When it comes in contact with the telephone pole. And
what does it sound like?
It sounds. Oh yeah, it should be noted that she makes this weird clicking sound that just adds to my argument. Really, I mean, she's constantly doing this, which I read. The actress who played Charlie, Millie Shapiro, really kind of did her homework on this character, did her due diligence and made this character what it was.
Yeah.
A testament to, even though she's very young, being just an incredibly talented actress. Anyway, she added the click.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
On her own. And then it became such a thing that, that they added, that it became the tagline for the movie.
Yeah.
Basically. I mean, yeah, it was entirely, it became what this movie will be known for.
Well, it's like a super, super useful thing to use throughout the movie.
Oh yeah, it became an integral part of the movie for continuity's sake.
Yeah, I mean that's a great character thing. Like I think going a little cinephile, I think Akira Kurosawa would give direction to his actors to have some kind of physical tick. Or maybe it was the actor that played in all the Kurosawa movies. Anyways, one of the things that they would do, and you would see this throughout many of those movies, is the character would have a particular tick, like a little shoulder movement or something that was just a nervous tic that identified him. So even without dialogue or hearing them, if you saw their silhouette, you could kind of understand who is who.
Yeah.
And this is one of those just very convenient literal character tics that is a great identifier throughout the movie.
Yeah,
even after she gets her head fucking knocked off by a telephone pole.
Yes. Yeah, it comes back to haunt everyone.
Right.
And it's very effective at that because it's sinister. Even when it's just done by an innocent little girl, it feels wrong, you know. It would cause anyone pause.
Right.
You go, what the fuck, what was that?
Right. So this is like the first half of the movie is the family immediately dealing with the loss of Charlie.
Yeah, consider this. Your son accidentally kills your daughter.
And it's...
Or is responsible for the death of your daughter.
It's done so well. From that moment that her head is knocked off by a telephone pole to like the next act of the movie, it is done so well because the way the son reacts is shocking, but also makes sense.
Completely understandable.
Right. He just basically goes into shock and cannot confront what just happened.
He drives home with her body sans head in the car.
He doesn't even go out and check. He just
goes
sits there.
to sleep.
He goes home, goes in and goes to sleep on the couch and lets his mother discover the body in the morning.
Oh man. Like I'm getting chills just thinking about this scene. This is the reason this movie is so effective at building dread is because it plays on your actual worst fears, your realistic worst fears for life. Not I'm afraid of the water, not that fear. It plays on the fear that your family will fall apart. It plays on the fear of losing a child. Yeah. Like and it shows you the grief, the unending, just horrible sadness. I'm tearing up thinking about it because that's the most intense thing that you could possibly have to go through. And this movie just slams it right into your lap and makes you deal with it and makes you watch these people in their horrible grief. And oh man.
So I read a thing last night about Hereditary. An article was talking about how the Blu-ray release of this doesn't have a director commentary, and everyone wants one because it's the director's first movie.
That's crazy.
It's crazy good, and it's his first time out of the gate, and there's no commentary on the DVD. But apparently he did do an interview with another podcast. I probably should have looked up where it was, but he did an interview where he kind of talked about his process, and he over-prepared, which is readily apparent in this movie. But apparently, when he was writing this movie, he wrote and directed it. When he was writing it, he wrote it to be a drama, and it turned into a horror movie.
It makes perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense, because that's exactly what happens in the movie, is it starts out as a drama with a slight setup for a possible future horror stuff to happen with the grandmother's funeral, but it's definitely a drama. And then eventually it switches gears into, okay, we're going from family dealing with grief to something ain't right.
And it happens so naturally. It happens. It seems like the only way it could happen.
Right.
But if the supernatural were real, this is how this shit would go down, and that's what makes it so horrifying. So one of the things I wanted to talk about with this was, so like one viewing of this movie is not enough. I could go back and watch this over and over again. Yeah,
I was pleasantly surprised that the second viewing, it's just as enjoyable. I think we waited the perfect amount of time between it because it felt like I had lost some information, but was able to see it anew, but also gain more information from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things upon second viewing of this movie that I made it a point to watch for because I felt it in the first viewing, and I got glimpses of it, but I just didn't know what to look for. And as it turns out, everything. Look for everything.
Right.
Like there's every part of this movie is intentional.
Yeah.
Every pan that the camera takes is for a reason. Everything they show you is carefully laid out for a purpose. So there are a lot of visual cues.
And I would imagine if I went through this and watched it like 5 times, I would find little Easter egg stuff throughout.
Yeah, it's crazy. And you know, I was thinking about it as I was writing the review that's going to accompany this podcast on our website, horrormovietalk.com. I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, man, this would make a killer book. And then I started going, you know what? Yeah, it would make a killer book because it's just a fantastic story.
Yeah.
So any good story is going to make a good book. But this story is so clearly crafted specifically to be a movie,
Right.
that it is a better movie than the movie would be better because
Toni Collette's scream alone upon discovering that her daughter is dead, just that screaming mourning,
brutal.
cannot be recreated in literature. It can only be in a movie.
And all the visual cues,
Right.
You know, there are little pans of the camera that go to show. So there's cult. One of the themes or the visual cues that is prevalent throughout the entire movie are these cult symbols of Paimon, who is Paimon is a lieutenant of hell, like one of the demons anointed by Satan,
Right.
to, you know, lead
And this
the
is only
armies.
revealed in like the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Well, but it's like slowly unfolded throughout, right?
So yeah, just to attach it really quick. So the daughter dies, and then spooky stuff starts happening, especially to the son. And Toni Collette befriends someone at a grief group. Turns out
She goes to Grievers Anonymous.
Yeah, to have ulterior motives is kind of setting her up to conduct a seance to where she reconnects with Charlie, and then stuff really starts taking off supernaturally, and the son is very, very haunted, and it drives everyone insane, and then the ending is basically everyone's dead except the son, and then it's revealed that this cult of Satanists were pulling the strings all along, and the son was be a vessel for this demon.
Every action that happens to this family, every bad thing, every good thing that happens to this family was carefully orchestrated by an outside force, a cult,
Or the demon itself.
And
Paimon is, it just briefly touched on it, the demon of, like, mischief or something
joking.
like that.
Yeah. Mischief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of Loki the demon.
Right. Yeah, and so the movie gives you hints that everything is meant to happen here and there. On the telephone pole that they drive by as they're going to the party, the camera pans over a little bit and shows on the telephone pole the symbol of Paimon. And but it's just not long enough for you to really, you see, oh, it's on her necklace. Like, it's on Toni Collette's necklace. What is that at the start of the movie? So you're like, oh, well, the camera lingered on that a little bit. That must be important. And then it's on the telephone pole. And then it's in Joni's house. It's in the house of the woman who's pretending to be grieving with Toni Collette over her lost daughter. So this symbol shows up throughout the movie as like an indicator for this is where something significant happens to this family. And it does every time, obviously. Another interesting kind of like theme of this movie was the miniatures that Toni Collette makes. Her job is building these basically panoramas, right?
Yeah, these miniature sets, these vignettes, and she's an artist, and that's her.
She gets commissioned.
Format,
she gets commissioned by people to make,
and it's autobiographical.
Right. Yes. So her work is, making model houses or model buildings, I would assume for architectural purposes. There are also artistic purposes behind it. I'm assuming she just does.
No, I think she's an artist that does this.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was. Because the only thing we see, and there's a little pressure in the movie about they need to make money off of all this work that she's been working on for months and months and months.
Right, a collection.
And they just barely, like, the studio called her and was like, hey, sorry your mom died.
Yeah, but
our hearts go out. Do you have any idea of when the show is going to happen? Is that still going to work at this date? And so there's a little pressure built into, like, while Toni Collette's dealing with all this grief, she's also got to finish this show and finish these miniatures, and it is, I can't imagine a more painful experience because she's documenting what's happening and how she's feeling through these miniatures. So it's not just buildings, it's the figures of her and her family and little vignettes of, grandma standing in the doorway creepily. And to the point where she even creates a vignette of Charlie's head knocked off next to this telephone pole, this miniature telephone pole with the car, and her husband's like, what the fuck?
This is inappropriate, Toni Collette.
And she's like, it's a what did she say? It's a neutral perspective.
Yeah, this is a neutral perspective. No, you're yes, absolutely.
But she's trying to, like, compartmentalize everything through her art, but it's obvious the feelings and the narrative that are being told through what she chooses to create.
Right.
So, yeah, that telephone, having her daughter's head knocked off next to a telephone pole is like, yeah, most people wouldn't choose that scene.
Right. Choose anything other than that.
Yeah.
But that's how she's dealing with her. No, my intent was someone with this very specific skill set of creating miniatures. They probably do work as,
right.
They probably create architectural stuff as well. This is just what she's doing at the moment. But anyway, this theme of showing of her doing these miniatures throughout the movie, like, it adds a weird sort of weight to every scene, because it's like there's something unnerving about looking at an accurate representation of bleak, disturbing images.
Right.
And as an art form, like, I get why someone commissioned her to do this. This is a very believable premise.
Right.
Because I would walk through this woman's life. That's basically what this movie is. It's looking at her life, a series of scenes of basically the end of her and her family's life, and it's haunting.
Right. Yeah, and it kind of describes some of the scenes throughout the movie of, there's a lot of the story of her relationship with her grandma or with her mom told through these miniatures.
Yeah.
And that's where it's revealed that the grandma is really overstepping bounds and inserting herself into their lives.
Literally.
There's a vignette in miniature form of the mother, the grandma, trying to breastfeed.
Yeah, the scene
one of
is
the babies.
The scene is Toni Collette in the hospital. Well, it's a miniature of Toni Collette in the hospital with her son, who is a newborn. She just had him, and her mother is standing there in a nightgown next to the bed with her breast out, offering it to this child. Yeah. And it's very obviously inappropriate, awkward, and created a rift between her and her mom, or made it just grow larger.
Yeah. And then it shows just the scenes of, Toni Collette caring for her mother and her dying in the hospital, to which you're kind of understanding, okay, this is a very strained relationship, and how do you deal with the death of someone that you really didn't like being around in the first place? Yeah. And so it's good. It's deep stuff. I mean, all that first half of the movie is a great movie.
Yeah, and there's no implication that, I mean, yes, it feels wrong, but it's not. I didn't think at this point that it was a horror movie.
Right.
I thought it was a sad, tragic, sad thing, and
Right.
it was. But
And there's
also,
definitely a lot of dread throughout.
yes,
Yeah.
this final significant visual cue were like just all the shots in this movie. It's very intentional. It opens on the treehouse. It closes on the treehouse. It's all got intent behind it.
The other big part that I loved about the movie was the character of, was it Joni? Joni?
Yeah, Joni or Joan.
Joan. That is basically, to me, the best part about this movie is it takes the best part of a lot of movies in the horror genre and puts them in one movie really, really well.
Yeah.
And the character of Joni is basically stolen whole cloth from Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah.
It's the neighbor character that
Concerned.
is all up in your business and concerned and very outgoing and steps a little over the line just to get you to do kind of what they want. And you just go along because, all right, I don't want to be rude. And, you know, I'm feeling weird. Might as well do it.
I am. Yeah. She's taking advantage of your weakened state.
Right. So she meets Joni.
Like a spider.
Yeah, she meets Joni at this grief counseling group, and she inserts herself into Toni Collette's grieving process, and very quickly presents the idea that, hey, I was shown how to do a seance and it really helped me with my grief. I really, really want to show you. No, I really want to show you. Come with me.
Please.
We're going to do this. And so she shows Toni Collette the experience of the seance, and, you know, yeah, it was great. I mean, it was a great example of a seance scene in a horror movie. Very effective. Toni Collette freaks the fuck out and gets the fuck out. And then later is like, oh, maybe I should.
She's like,
And before she goes, like, Joni shoves in her hand, just say these words. Just say these words and get your whole family in the...
Here's the instructions that I was given. Go ahead and summon your own daughter. I know if you just want to talk to her.
I know you're freaking out and you're like having a panic attack in my room, but really take these words and go say it so you can connect with Charlie again.
Go say it with your family. Make sure they're all there.
Yeah. Make sure they're all in the room. Is that what it was?
All in the house.
All in the house. So, yeah, so then she does that. She does a seance, and that's when all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that character is so great.
Yeah, she's
and then
a
it reveals
spectacular.
that she's like the high priestess of the satanic cult.
Yeah.
Know? And all these pictures of her grandma and these satanic rituals, all of a sudden Joni's all over that and is one of her mom's greatest friends. And she just never knew. Like, wow, a lot of this could be avoided if you just showed a little bit of interest in your mom.
Yeah, but her mom was unbearable.
Right.
I get it. Not that I'm not saying my mom's unbearable. I'm just saying I get the desire to not, you know.
Yeah,
I can't be bothered with. Oh God, she's just unbearable. She's so overbearing.
That's one of the greatest themes. Is the relatability of having someone in your life that's trying to insert themselves in ways that you don't want them to.
And exhausting you. Yeah.
And you feel in real life, it's just, this is inappropriate. I just have to put a stop to this. This creates more stress for me. And in a horror movie, it's, this is inappropriate, creates more stress. Oh, wait, they have ulterior motives, and this is very sinister.
Yeah.
So both Joni, the character, and her mom are that character of trying to insert themselves, overstepping bounds, and, you know, being nice socially dictates that you can't just tell them to get out of your life and stop doing that. You just like kind of like put up boundaries, and
it's brilliant cover.
And then it's, oh no, it's sinister. They're trying to take over this family.
It's brilliant cover, you know, because you're just annoying. Yeah. Your scene is just annoying. And there is nothing more easy to dismiss than someone who is annoying. You know, it's just, oh, get out of here. Ugh, you. But they're like, no, come on. No, come on. I'm happy. I'm here to help. I want to help you. I know what's best. Come on, let's just do the thing that I want to do. But in reality, what they want to do is turn your son into a demon,
a demon prince,
a demon prince from hell.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Yeah.
Let me think here. I had a question for the audience. One thing about this movie that I noticed, this is upon the second watch, was I empathize with every major character in this movie at every point in this movie.
Yeah.
The poor dad.
Yeah.
That poor man. Like, he just wants things to be normal. And, oh my God, I lost my daughter. And now my wife is at odds with my son. And I just want things to go back to normal. That poor man. The son who unbelievable guilt. Didn't want to, he loved his sister. He didn't want her to die. He accidentally killed his sister, kind of.
Yeah.
The mom, like, you can empathize with all of them simultaneously through every portion of the movie.
Right.
So my question is, who did you relate to most in the audience? So for the audience, who did you relate to most? For me, it was the son, because I just remember that feeling of like, oh shit. Like as a young kid or a teenager, just being like, I've rung a bell that can't be unrung. Maybe I said something that was just unforgivable, or I found something out. Now my innocence is gone. A part of my innocence is gone, or something like that. That feeling of, oh, no, what have I done? Yeah. I felt very strongly connected to that. What about you?
Yeah, I think I went along with the son most, because a lot of it's told through his eyes, and a lot of the stuff that happens that's completely, I mean, he's the most innocent person in the movie.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
he has no real fault. I mean, everything that happened that's a tragedy attached to him is either an accident or it's done to him. Right.
He has the vice of smoking marijuana,
yeah,
right?
Sure.
It's certainly not, I mean, it's definitely, it's a normal behavior for...
Right. He was being kind of a dick to his sister and leaving her alone, and you set up the situation where
but there's nothing... There's nothing that's unforgivable.
Yeah.
Like, it's all just normal kid stuff.
Right. So a big part that we glossed over, like a big backstory. And this is what one of those touches that takes it from being a good movie to being a great movie, of just adding a layer that didn't need to be there, but just makes it better, is the backstory of Toni Collette's character is she sleepwalks, and one time she sleepwalked and woke up and found out that she had doused her son in kerosene and was holding a match. And so
herself and her son covered in kerosene, yeah. She's holding a match, and they're both like, what? At that point, she wakes up from her
right.
sleepwalking.
And so there's the big weight over, what was that all about? Was that intentional? Is she lying about being sleepwalking?
She glosses over it. She's the person who tells you about it. She glosses over it, and the movie kind of glosses over it.
Right. And
we glossed over it.
And so it added such a layer of, because that's one of the things missing in a lot of horror movies, is when weird stuff is happening to people and they tell other people about it, other people don't believe them, but they don't usually have a great reason for not believing them. Or even because sometimes they witness it too. So in this circumstance, they do a seance and weird shit happens, and you would think, all right, the father would be like, wow, this is intense. Something weird is happening here. But in this movie, it's like, I'm tired of this shit, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's this background of
enough weird stuff has happened.
My wife is crazy, and I'm not sure what depths she would go to change our mind or whatever. So that's great. So him, like, he literally experienced his mother almost murdering him by accident. He experienced directly contributing to the accidental death of his sister, and then all of a sudden, all this demon energy is trying to take over him and trying to control his body and to kill himself and stuff. And then at the end, his whole family's dead, and he becomes Payman.
Yeah.
Or rather, what
Payman inhabits his body.
Well, actually, it's Charlie inhabiting his body, which is Payman.
What?
I'm not, because when he wakes up,
they say,
and they
welcome
crown him
Charlie?
like, "Don't worry, Charlie. I know you're confused." And so, so it's like, all right. So is Charlie the one haunting him, or was Charlie from a young age? Oh yeah, that was the other thing that it talked about, is that Payman wanted a male body, but unfortunately, all he could get was Charlie. And so
I just realized something that I hadn't. Maybe you knew this the whole time. So the reason the grandmother was so covetous of, and offering her breast to the first grandchild was he was a male. Right? She wanted to get her hooks into him. It was even said.
Right.
And so she wanted to put Payman, I don't know how she had Payman, like what vessel she was going to use to deliver Payman into the first child, who was the son, but she didn't get to. And
right,
and it was
Toni
said,
Collette's character talks about how she really set up boundaries and completely separated her mother from
the firstborn. But she said she got her hooks into Charlie, and so the mother put Payman into Charlie as like a storage vessel,
right?
Until we could orchestrate moving Payman into my other grandchild.
Yeah. Or I mean it's
that's crazy.
There's a lot left to.
I didn't think I'd learn any more, but I just kind of learned more just now. She was a holdover,
right?
It wasn't like she was born with Payman in her. It wasn't like and the name Hereditary,
Yeah, it might have been, to me, what I think happened was they groomed Charlie to be a vessel for Payman, or she was a vessel for Payman. So all the weird behavior was actually, a demon, or a demon working through her. Because it was pretty obvious that something's not right about her.
Yeah.
And it's not just that Grandma did a lot of weird things to her. It's that something nefarious is influencing her. But it states that Payman wants a male body. So I think, my theory is, this whole thing was orchestrated by Payman. He could have just stayed in Charlie. He was already in there. But said, you know what? There's this boy. I want that one. And so orchestrated Charlie dying and getting inserted into Peter. Is it Peter?
Why this family? Were they long lost ancestors of Payman?
I think what it shows when she's going through the information is that when Toni Collette's going through her mother's things. Mm-hmm. Also, if you're going through your mother's things and find a bunch of satanic texts and handbooks on how to conjure up demons, just take note. But yeah, she's looking through these texts, and it shows whoever facilitates the conjuring of Payman, or whatever. Whoever finds a body for Payman will be showered with innumerable wealth. And so it's shown like a little illustration of a guy on just a mountain of gold. And then in one of the pictures of the mother at one of the satanic rituals, it shows all the other participants showering her with gold coins, and she's just having the time of her life. So I think she volunteered her family to be the son or the daughter, to be the vessel for Payman, and because of that, she was given a bunch of perks from this cult, and that's why everyone loved her, and she was known and famous, and I guess you didn't really do the math that it doesn't matter if you have a ton of money if you're dead or if you're in hell, depending on your belief system. Like, if I'm in hell, I don't really care if I have $1 billion. I'm in hell.
I don't understand I understand it as a storytelling tool, the love of the greed, the love of money. But I can't imagine, being the grandma and having people like, shower me with gold coins and being like, wee, this is so much fun.
She looked really happy in the picture.
I know she did. I just don't like, and I know, but there must be people out there.
Well, just think about the crazy stuff your grandma does for religion.
She's dead, Bryce.
Well,
did.
Both of them?
No.
Okay.
But, the one
or
was really
think
religious.
All right, whatever. Think about what old people do for religion.
They love that stuff.
That harms their family.
Eat it up. Oh, yeah. It's one of the main contributors of messed up families.
Right.
One of the big ones.
Yeah.
Let me see here. So yeah, I would be interested to know who in the audience felt, who did you empathize with the most? Why? Yeah. If you don't want to share too much, that's fine. I'm just interested to know,
Yeah.
Because they're all very understandable.
One of the things I'm interested in is who didn't like this movie. Because I've gone on Reddit and there's haters of Hereditary just saying, oh, it's so overblown. Like there's been so much hype about it. And I'm like, how can you like horror movies and not like this movie?
My wife...
I just don't understand.
My wife liked the movie fine. She liked it fine. After watching it, she was like, yeah, that was good. Yeah, it was really good. And then, I talked to her this week about it, and she was kind of like, it's a movie. And I was like, wow. But things don't... I think she doesn't... It's a much more... she's just...
Yeah, but there's people that really didn't like this movie.
Yeah, that's hard for me to believe. I don't know. Maybe it just. I think it. Here's a theory. It's so uncomfortable to watch. This movie is discomfort. The movie, and if you don't like, excuse me, if you don't like confronting the worst fears, real life fears that you could ever imagine, this would be not a great time for you.
Right.
So it could just be that kind of coming out of them and them, saying this movie sucks because it made them feel so uncomfortable. I don't know.
I think maybe it might be people that like horror movies for
shock
or the jump scare or
something
like that.
It is shocking.
It's the most dreadful movie I've seen in recent history. I think people might complain that it's slow or boring, but then you just must not have much empathy for what these characters are going through, because there's a lot of intense stuff happening before anything supernatural happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move on to I think that wraps up our spoiler. That was a very long talk about this movie. I think it deserved it. Let's move on to tagline. Here's tagline. That makes me laugh every time I hear it. Okay, you want to go first or should I? Oh, so I should say, for those of you who aren't familiar with this this bit, taglines is just a part of the show where we come up with funny, usually funny taglines for the movies, or at least try to. They're train wrecks a lot of the time, which is kind of fun to watch. Everybody likes it.
But either way, we think they're better suited to the movie than
the tagline it came with.
Yeah. Maybe we should read what the actual tagline is before.
Oh, that would be a good idea. Well, that'd be hard because there's 30 taglines for every movie.
All right, let's not do that. Right. Okay, Hereditary. Bo Burnham's 8th Grade Part 2.
I get it because I've seen 8th Grade, and it was almost as uncomfortable as Hereditary. It was maybe...
Also, the girl's probably in 8th grade.
It wasn't
probably that age.
Yeah, she's about that. It wasn't as 8th Grade was not dreadful, but it was, oh man, it was uncomfortable. Yeah, I like that one. What was it again?
Bo Burnham's 8th Grade Part 2.
Okay, here's one I got. Hereditary. Like Muriel's Wedding, but with 100% more payment.
Okay, Hereditary. What's wrong with her face?
What?
It's got a weird face.
What was that from, though?
I stole that from Red Letter Media, but
Oh.
just in general.
Okay. The bad ending to Little Miss Sunshine. Because it's the same family, basically. Little girl.
Yeah,
that's
quirky.
Centered around got Tony Collette, right? Also, it's got the dad. He can't do anything right. Dude, I'm a stupid dad.
All right. Hereditary. That probably is the tag.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not, it should be.
Yeah.
Treehouse of Horror 29. Case of the Headless Family. Everybody in this family got their head cut off, with the exception of the males. All the women did. The grandmother, the mom, the daughter, no heads.
Yeah. Okay, I gotta sell this one. Hereditary. I'm Ants in My Eyes Johnson, and this Ants in My Eyes Johnson's the movie. I mean, there's so many ants in my eyes, and there's so much fright and scares. The natural consequences of not paying attention to... Oh, shoot. I went on.
I like it. I'm going to allow a redo.
Okay, yeah.
Let's
do a redo. Hereditary. I'm Ants in My Eyes Johnson, and this is Ants in My Eyes Johnson's the movie. I mean, there's so many ants in my eyes, and there's so many frights and scares.
Yay! I like that. A nod to the Rick and Morty fans out there. Okay, this one we may need to edit a little bit of my of this one.
Okay,
just because I got to get into this. There's a flow to this.
Okay,
so
I gotta also say that we just totally glossed over the most horrifying shot of the movie is all the ants covering Charlie's head.
Well, that's definitely one of the most horrifying.
Yeah.
There's another one that's pretty... Whew.
Well, yeah. And the...
Okay, all right. I don't want to think about it.
Okay.
This is... Okay. Payment gonna get in your way, man. We gonna shit on your day, man. Get ready for pay, man. I've been listening to that new Eminem album. I couldn't get the flows out of my head.
All right.
Had to get it out in the form of a Paymon rap.
Okay. All right. Hereditary. The natural consequences of not paying attention to Grandma's photo albums.
That's good. She tried to show them to you over and over again. You just weren't interested.
Like, okay, Grandma, yeah, that's a nice picture.
She wanted to let you into
you with gold. Yeah, okay.
She wanted to let you into her life.
Yeah,
into her satanic ritual cult,
right.
But you wouldn't have it. Oh no. That's all I got. I don't have any more.
I got one more. Hereditary. It'll blow your head right off.
So let me see here. I should speak into the mic when I'm talking. The other part of this movie, I should say, the other part of this podcast, it was pre-recorded. I spoke with Erin, Bryce's wife, who definitely hates horror movies, big time, avoids them at all cost.
To give some perspective, I try to get my wife to watch good horror movies so much, and at most the scariest movie that we have watched together is probably Interview with a Vampire, and maybe like one or two other movies that could be even classified as horror movies. But they're pretty
pathetic.
Yeah,
I mean,
like everything that I can get her to watch is kind of orbiting horror. It isn't a true like scary movie because she hates that feeling. She hates the feeling of dread.
I like the idea of this bit so much because I find people, it's so interesting to me, people who don't like horror movies.
Yeah, we gotta get a name for this bit of one-on-one with a non-horror movie fan or something like that. I've
mentioned this before, I think. My cousin had a physical reaction when I told her, "Oh, a buddy and I, we're doing a horror movie podcast." She was like, "Why? Why would you do that? No. You know, she will get up and walk out of the house and drive away. If anything, if she feels as though a horror-esque thing, a spooky thing is being perpetrated upon her. One of the Planet of the Apes was almost too much for her. She was like, I can't handle this level of realism. I'm like, they're apes and they're talking. And she's like, I gotta go. So I would love to get people like that in to watch movies with us. I think it's very interesting. Let us know what you think. Here is the clip of me and Erin discussing Hereditary. Mm-hmm. Are we going?
Yeah.
So, Erin, you're not a fan of horror movies.
No.
Not at all?
No. I mean, I've seen a few.
What have you seen?
Okay, The Omen and that goes back to the Interview with the Vampire. It kind of goes back to the what is a horror movie versus a thriller or suspense.
Sure.
I mean, there are some thrillers or suspense that I would consider horror movies just because they scared me a lot.
How did the Interview with the Vampire strike you? Was it terribly stressful?
I don't remember. I don't remember it being stressful. I think mostly because it was built up in the, probably the public consciousness of, pop culture.
Yeah.
So and it's a whole bunch of famous people. So it really pulled me out of, the story, the suspension of disbelief.
What is it about horror that really just makes you so adverse to it?
Oh, the dread.
You don't like the suspense, the build?
Yeah, I just don't like the feeling of being scared.
It's
and they scare me. Those movies scare me.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's definitely, I think that's how everybody starts out watching horror movies. I think the difference between people who end up really enjoying horror movies and the people who don't is there's like this morbid curiosity that eventually works its way into, the end game is just being totally dead to anything to anything disturbing or upsetting, and it's like you need something more to get you off on your horror movie thing.
You need to get your fix by watching more and more terrifying things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with that being said,
I can see that, like, because as someone who appreciates and loves period films, the more period a film can be, the better.
Oh damn, that was so 1866 right there. You could tell it wasn't 62.
There was like no anachronisms in there at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that being said, for someone who doesn't like horror movies, in my opinion, you came into like it took some doing to get you to watch Hereditary with us, but for me, bang for my buck, Hereditary is top tier. Like, it is one of the best at building dread, at building suspense. It's got stuff that's just very tremendously upsetting within it, and you actually sat down and watched it with us. So my question is, did you like it?
I appreciated it.
You did?
Yeah, I mean, it's very high quality. Like, it's not a slasher. It's not, you know, B movie quality. It is, you know, top tier movie quality. It's really good, great acting in it. But I don't know. It goes back to the feeling of dread being a little overwhelming for me.
I mean, bravo on sitting through it, because, like I said, I think has the most dread. I mean, aside from, well, I'll have to think about what other movies affected me the same way Hereditary did, but. You know, like you said, there's no jump scares. I'm sure you probably appreciated that.
Oh yeah, that was nice not to have jumps. I mean, not to say that there weren't things that were
much worse,
frightening or surprising. I mean, there were definitely surprising moments, but no like jump scares with the screeching violins or the scratching a metal bar against something else. But there were times when I was watching it that made me just recall the feeling that I had when I was watching We Need to Talk About Kevin. And, like, as far as movies like sticking with you go, that one pops into my head like probably every few weeks or so, and it was years ago since I've seen it.
I watched that movie and I can't really recall much about it. He was like a down on his luck. Oh, maybe oh no, I'm thinking of something else. This was a kid who was disturbed, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It was from
he
like his
and
birth, basically.
yeah, and he like learned early on how to gaslight his mother, like as an infant. So, and I mean, Tilda Swinton, you know, delivered an amazing performance, and it's great. Great film that I never want to see again because of the feeling of it. And same way with Hereditary. Like it's like I get it. I see the value of it. This is good quality stuff, but holy crap, it was scary.
Yeah, it really was. What parts of this movie stand out to you?
Oh geez, the seances. Like, oh man, especially the second one with the family.
Oh yeah,
like there are only a few times in my life that I can say that I've felt like chills running down my spine, or like full body chills from like fear or creepiness. And I had one of those moments during that second seance when the glass moved and just nope, and the kids crying and screaming and like stop, and oh no, I just got chills again thinking about it.
I did too. The movie has an extra. It has something extra in its back pocket, which is it really builds the relationship of this family up. It like builds the history. It alludes to certain things, and then it creates this incredible tension within this very small family that just became smaller by one, and it just. Yeah, it has the ability. It just did that over and over again. Just messes with you.
Yeah, and you definitely connect with every character.
Every single one.
Yeah, you have even the one that turns out being like super evil. Like you really connect with every single one. You can like see what's going on and really kind of feel the feelings. That's great acting, great directing, great writing. So I can appreciate all that stuff. I don't think I'll ever watch it again because
you should. I'm just saying you should, because I know for a fact that you missed a bunch of things. Because, for example, there was one part where there was something visible in the screen for a long in frame for a long time, and this is not a critique of you. It's just an observation. You're a fairly vocal horror movie watcher. You let it be known when you're like, oh shit, he's got a knife, kind of thing, you know. So,
bitch, get out the room.
If you had seen this, you would have leapt out of your chair, but you didn't. And there's other things that I noticed that you didn't notice, and. Well, maybe if you're not into being scared, it's not a thing for you. But
yeah, so I mean, I appreciate the craft. Like the movie making craft is very high in Hereditary. It's great. And I looked up the little girl, like the actress. She's like legit Broadway star.
Yeah.
And like she played Matilda. She has a Grammy for the original cast recording of Matilda on Broadway. So, I mean, that kid it was obvious in the movie she has talent, but
it's impressive. It's impressive when an actor or actress can play someone who has a mental disability and pull it off so well that you go, were they? Like, is it?
Yeah, was it a mental disability, or would you? I think I'd probably classify it as like a social disability, even though we find out what the problem is.
So like, it seemed as if she had a cleft lip or a cleft palate, something to that extent. No. I mean, it seemed to me how the makeup on her was intended, and she definitely was not firing on all cylinders as a character, right?
Oh yeah. I don't know. I mean, she didn't seem mentally deficient to me. It was more of like a social thing, and the way that she interacted with everyone just really seemed like she was just not connecting. I mean, going back to, that's why it reminded me of We Need to Talk About Kevin, because in that movie, the mother keeps trying over and over and over to connect with her son, and it just isn't happening, and everyone else seems to think things are fine. In this one, no one seems to think things are fine.
Yeah.
And, but you still have like all that kind of empathy for what this family's going through. Like, you can't tell if the trauma with the girl is just because the grandma passed away, or if there's something else going on, which you can kind of tell there's something else going on.
I can tell there's something else. It's not just grandma, but going back.
But you could talk yourself out of thinking that something else is going on because of the way it's acted.
Yeah.
Like, you could think, okay, well, maybe they're just leading me down that path, and I'm not really supposed to think that.
Right.
But no, it turns out, yeah.
Going back to what you said about how you can empathize with every character, that was one of the things that I wrote down in my notes on this movie. I could see the point of view of every person simultaneously the whole way through this movie. I could see the point of view of the brother, of the mom, the dad, certainly. You could see, it was brilliant because, and the only people whose point of view you couldn't actually see were the people who were not being honest with the other characters. So like Joni, right? You thought you could see her point of view, which is, I'm going to help you connect with your dead daughter, but that wasn't her actual intent. You couldn't really see her point of view. Her point of view was, let's bring like the 12th god of hell to Earth, or whatever it was, right?
Yeah, make you think twice about your friendly neighbors, huh?
But you were suspicious of her, it seemed, almost right off the bat.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Because she didn't match any of the other characters in the movie. Like, she was a completely positive person. And, I mean, everyone else is, like, at least realistic about it.
Yeah.
I mean, even the kids around the girl at school, the kids around the boy at school, everyone was more realistic, and she was just like, la, 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 la. And when she told Annie that, she's like, I went to a medium, it was so wonderful, and then she brought her back to her own house and started running the seance. I was like, hold on.
Yeah.
You said you went to a medium. How are you doing this yourself now? Like, within the context of the movie, it makes sense, but still, it was like, hold on, you're not being forthcoming about something. Yeah,
absolutely. It starts to become more and more evident, as you get to know Joan throughout the movie. But I think that you were so vigilant, and you were so distrusting of every part of this movie, because you were like, is that accurate?
Yeah, because I didn't want to watch it.
I
didn't want to be scared. I didn't want to watch it.
Want to have the wool pulled over your eyes for 1 second. Right. And for me, like, I didn't even know this movie was a horror movie when I walked into the movie theater. Bryce was just like, "You want to see this movie?" And I was like, I don't know. I've heard it has some, I've heard it's a drama that has some disturbing, imagery and stuff like that. And has some, like real heavy stuff that you got to deal with. So I don't know. So for me, I didn't have like my guard up at all. And I normally don't in horror movies, to be honest with you. Like, I have it up a little bit, but nothing like what you had going on. You were suspicious of every single thing that took place in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably a fight or flight response.
I can see it not being enjoyable to that. If that were the case, I wouldn't want to watch. The 8th grade was that way for me. What was that? Bo Burnham?
Uh-huh. Yeah, interesting that you'd bring that movie up, because on the way home from watching Hereditary, I was talking with Bryce about this, that like, this is 2 movies in the last month or so that I've seen starring 13-year-old girls.
Yeah.
And these 13-year-old actresses that aren't like cheerleaders, they're not the most beautiful girl in the room. They're not the most charismatic girl in the room. These are like kind of normal looking girls that are in the middle of puberty.
Yeah.
Which is the crappiest time to have a movie made starring you, because then it's on film forever. So I thought it was really neat, because, I was a 13-year-old awkward girl once. And so seeing these like real 13-year-old girls, I mean, obviously not a possessed one, but like real actors, like looking like real girls, not, 17-year-olds trying to play down to 13 that were, you know what I mean? So it was pretty cool. Like, you don't ever see that hardly ever in mainstream films other than, Disney Channel stuff. But,
sure.
And even then, those are like the pretty popular, charismatic child actors.
Yeah.
With a capital CA.
Yeah. 8th grade was a panic attack for me. Like, that movie had my guard up the whole time.
So that was like your horror
Oh my
movie.
God. That movie was so uncomfortable. He did such a good job making a perfect representation of what it was like in 8th grade. But anyway, I gotta say, you were an excellent sport for going and watching Hereditary with us, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that. All right, well, hey, thank you everybody for listening. Go see Hereditary if you haven't already. What are you doing? What are you doing? You can't sleep on this movie. This is a fabulous movie.